day, grade 8 students. You are now watching an episode of TLE, Agriculture, Fishery Arts, Aquaculture, and Fish Capture subject for Quarter 3, Module 9, Lesson 5. I am Teacher LMA and welcome to my class. I will be with you in this episode. And definitely, I know that you are ready and excited to learn. So get ready with your module, notebook, and pen. Let's stay at home and make learning fun. Today, we will be talking about first aid and its principles. I am sure you are already familiar with the term, but this time we'll be learning more about it. Our objective for today's episode are for you to be able to define first aid and its principles and identify situations to be observed during an accident. This is the only video lesson for this episode, so make sure to stay tuned until the end of this video. I bet you are ready, so let's begin. Before we start our lesson, let's try to find out how far you've known about first aid. You're going to identify the pictures that will be flashed on screen using the given clue words. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. Here's our first picture. What do you think is it? Correct! This picture shows cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR. Are you ready for the next picture? Here it is. What does this picture show? You got it right. This picture shows calling ambulance. And for our last picture, check this out. What do you think is it? Perfect! This picture shows first aid kit. You did a right job. Before we go further, let's first familiarize ourselves with the different technical terms. Let's read together. AVPU, alert, verbal, pain, unresponsive. Casualty, a person who is injured or killed in a war or in an accident. CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Injury, a physical trauma, damage to the body caused by an external force. EAR, expired air resuscitation. A quote says, "The practice of goodwill in daily living generates enormous benefits for one's health and the most of others." What is first aid? First aid is a temporary treatment. First aid can be carried out by people with little training. First aid is applying treatment after injury or illness occurs. First aid involves natural treatment and requires little or no technology. First aid manages to keep the condition from deterioration while waiting for medical treatment. Class, have you applied first aid before? Okay, now that we understand what first aid is, we will now proceed to its principles. First principle, save life. Why do you think save life is the first principle? You're right. It is the main purpose why we give first aid in the first place. The second principle is to raise recovery, which is connected with the third principle, taking fast action. The fourth principle is hinder deterioration. What does the word hinder mean? Correct! Hinder means to stop. The fifth principle is calming down the situation, meaning we should not panic and just calm down. The sixth principle is to apply the relevant treatment. We should apply the right treatment to the injured. The seventh and the last principle is calling for medical assistance. Now, can you recall the principles of first aid? Great job so far! Now, before applying first aid, what should be observed during the accident? Let us always remember that if someone is injured, the following must be done. Check the area if safe, and when it's safe to do, carry out basic first aid. Then, dial emergency hotline number for an ambulance. Another thing to remember that if someone is unconscious, breathing, and no injuries, the following must be done. Don't obstruct his airway. Set up the casualty into recovery position until help arrives. Call an ambulance and start CPR immediately. Were you able to follow that? Alright, can you still recall what is first aid? That's right! First aid is the first step in any emergency response of the problem and providing help. What about the principles of first aid? Yes, that's right. The principles of first aid are save life, raise recovery, taking fast action, hinder deterioration, calming down the situation, apply the relevant treatment, and calling for medical assistance. Did you follow, class? Very good! Lastly, what should we do if a person is not breathing normally after an incident? That's great! We must call an ambulance and start CPR immediately. So, in order for us to be able to call for help, what must we remember? Know the emergency services number in the place or country you visit. And always remember, the practice of goodwill in daily living generates enormous benefits for one's health and the moods of others. Now, let us have a short quiz about our lesson for today. Listen as I read each question. Then, choose the letter of the correct answer and write it in your activity notebook. Are you ready? Okay, let's start. Question number 1. What is first aid? A. Applied before injury occurs. B. For treatment only to ill individual. C. Performed only to unconscious casualty. D. Usually administered after the injury or illness occurs. Number 2. One of the principles of first aid is to blank. A. Enjoy life. B. Observe life. C. Preserve life. D. Perform the guidelines. Question number 3. What will you do if you meet a person who is injured? A. Call for help. B. Leave him alone. C. Carry to the health center. D. Cry in front of the casualty. Question number 4. Which of the following is the correct meaning of the CPR? A. Cardiopulmonary recycle. B. Cardio-pulse resuscitation. C. Cardiopulmonary resistance. D. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Question number 5. What will you do if the person is injured in the accident? A. Leave the person. It is not your concern. B. Carry immediately to the nearest hospital. C. Take a picture and post it in the social media. D. Check the casualty, dial the emergency number for an ambulance, and carry out the basic first aid. Okay, let us check your answers. For question number 1, what is first aid? The correct answer is letter D, usually administered after the injury or illness occurs. For number 2, one of the principles of first aid is to blank. The correct answer is letter C, preserve life. Question number 3. What will you do if you meet a person who is injured? The correct answer is letter A, call for help. Question number 4. Which of the following is the correct meaning of CPR? The correct answer is letter D, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And now for the last number, question number 5. What will you do if the person is injured in the accident? The correct answer is letter D. Check the casualty, dial the emergency number for an ambulance, and carry out the basic first aid. Please do an advanced reading for the next topic and be sure to follow the next video tomorrow. This is Teacher Elia B. Hermano saying, keep safe everyone and God bless.